I am scared. I am too weak. I cannot keep going any longer. I reached my limit long ago. My bones are worn from walking this endless tomb in search of the invisible. Why do I keep getting lost in the nothingness? Time has slipped between my fingers like sand. And yet, I am still incomplete. My burden, my last breath, shall be carried by a vessel. Godhusk is enigmatic. Godhusk is brutal. And Godhusk is one of the best sci-fi settings that I've ever read. Yet, despite this, it doesn't exist in the way it is written to be. Now, what does this mean? Well, Godhusk is a lore and rulebook for a game that doesn't exist. Said game belongs in the Metroidvania genre, which has many games belonging to it, especially from the 80s and 90s. Yet Godhusk is its own thing entirely in both presentation and artistry. It was written by Plastiboo, who also created the well-known Vermis, a more dark fantasy-leaning rulebook. Godhusk is based in a world akin to that of, well, not many things. It is very unique, yet stylistically it could be compared to media such as Scorn or anything Geiger, the manga Blame or Baroque on the Sega Saturn that I have previously covered on this channel. Despite this though, nothing like Godhusk really exists, especially because the genre the book belongs to, being the game that doesn't exist, is a relatively scarce one. That being, not many of these sort of books exist. From the cover alone you are met with an amalgamation analogous to the works of H.R. Geiger. It is almost incomprehensible to look at. You are most likely not sure if it's bipedal, a simple piece of machinery, or both. The hole in its head looks directly onto us, the reader, acting maybe as an eye. And so we open the book. The book details the lore of this world as well as the many supposed gameplay systems inside of it. I will go through it mostly in order, but if you want to support the official release, then the link to purchase Godhusk is in the description, alongside the author's Instagram. Please support the official release if you can, as I have. If you enjoy my content, please be sure to like and subscribe, and check out my other videos if you want more. Below is also a link to my Patreon, socials and Discord server. This video is shorter and maybe a little different than most of my other projects that I've made, but it is very heavily edited and acts as a journey through this book about a game that simply does not exist. I hope you enjoy. In Godhusk exist nests. which are the complexes that have the sole purpose of mass-producing vessels. Nests have been left long abandoned and inactive, and the nest we are focused on is nest L609. It is filled with the pus and rot of the vessels that were denied their birth thanks to the failure of, well, something, long before their formation was complete. The hand is the protagonist of Godhusk, and it can be born if its tank is repeatedly shook. Vessels go through varied development. The primal form of vessels are the larvae. At this stage, the anatomy of the vessel slowly grows inside it, and eventually the vessel proper will emerge so it may serve its purpose. Soon after this, the vessel reaches its proto-vessel form, growing basic senses such as movement and vision. After this point, it will eventually become an explorer. Its upper limbs morph into legs, and it becomes capable of walking and interacting, as well as obeying. Going back to proto-vessels, during this stage they will learn how to walk, but their lower bodies are dragged around until it eventually becomes capable of using it. At that point they become an explorer. Explorers have an umbilical cord they can use as a whip and an appendage near its respiratory system. This appendage is used to perform basic interactions. Now, after a vessel has grown past the stage of explorer, they become fully developed, a living machine. This is where vessels can do what they were made to do. All vessels were created to perform specific functions, but due to the state of the world, their original purposes have been forgotten. Due to this, many of them have developed their own behaviors and freely modify their bodies. Inside every vessel is a life system and a mind cell. The mind cell carries mind units, and more rarely a spirit, which is a mind that has lived through several bodies and memories. Each fully developed vessel has 4 key components. The torso cannot be removed but can be modified. The head can be removed but will expose the life system, causing the vessel to become very vulnerable. So vulnerable, in fact, that a single hit could be fatal. A vessel's weapon is varied but indispensable, used for both defense and destruction. The limbs grow naturally and in different ways depending on the assignment of the vessel. If a limb is lost, it can easily be replaced due to the vessel's adaptive biomechanism. Going back to the hand. Again, the hand is the protagonist of this not-so game, and only awakens after its tank is shook enough. Once awakened and fully developed, it will gain access to the operator. The operator is the heads-up display of Godhusk and lists the life system, with 3 blood bulbs that are drained when the hand takes damage. Blood bulbs are also weak points on other vessels and can be destroyed with ease. Each vessel has a life system, with the more complex life system existing on more powerful vessels. Life systems can even be upgraded with additional blood bulbs. The hand starts its journey with 3 of them. Venturing outside its nest into the pitch-black hidden room that can only be accessed if the hand uses a specific weapon, the hand will come across Living Coal, a harmless creature that plays dead when the hand is nearby. When it isn't playing dead, it will simply crawl around. This isn't the only time it can be encountered though, as the hand may encounter it multiple times across its journey, almost like it is following it. This of course doesn't apply if the hand decides to kill it. If the hand waits outside the hidden room for long enough, then the living hole will eventually crawl out of it. The hand may place 1 item into the living hole that can be retrieved at a later time, but if it tries to put more than 1 item in there, the living hole will shriek out in pain. Moving out of the nest will cause the entrance of it to be buried in debris, making it inaccessible from that point forward. Ahead though, the hand will find the magnetic garden, an area that allows the hand to experiment with its functions without much worry of danger. This garden is filled with bile, scraps and limbs. Here though is another vessel, a merchant vessel named Nia 7. Initially, Nia 7 hides in her storage box, but if the hand is patient and quiet enough, she will eventually emerge. Nia 7 may offer the hand new limbs, weapons, and headpieces in exchange for bile, being the substance found in vessels and organisms. Nia 7 cannot speak, with its largest expression happening if the hand purchases all of its stock. A little dance. Going back to bile, there are many types. Again, every living organism and vessel has bile inside it. There are two classes of bile, red and white. Red is present in all cytine lifeforms, or chitin, it's not quite clear how it's pronounced, and is a fluid compatible with the hand's bile valve and can be consumed or used to trade. White bile, however, is only present in vessels and other types of biomachinery, and is necessary for the hand's motion system. In Godhusk exist vessels and biomechanisms both hostile and neutral. An example of the latter being the aforementioned Nia 7. Child of Waste is an example of a hostile vessel that feeds on the waste of the world, becoming more aggressive as it matures. If the hand is attacked by the child, it may lay eggs in its storage. These eggs are similar to the birthing tanks, such as the one the hand was birthed from. If these eggs remain in the storage for too long, it will eventually hatch into larvae and start to slowly devour the inventory of the hand. Rust feeders are non-hostile biomechanisms that wander around the magnetic garden, consuming waste and corrosion like a vacuum. They are large enough to be ridden if the hand jumps on its back. Scups bury their bodies into the floor with their acidic tentacles, leaving only a horrifying false face glaring upward. Stepping on a scup is fatal, as is attacking its peeking blood bulb. Doing either will cause the blood bulb to detract and cause the scup to attack the hand. Scups, instead of hiding, may show their true face instead, causing their blood bulb to remain permanently present. These scups, though, are more aggressive. Pea spores float around in search of particles in the air to consume. When it detects a foreign chemical or impurity, it will open its membrane and release a harmful agent. Scavengers move in packs, hunting for things to attach to themselves. If it has weapons or certain limbs attached to it, it may prove a threat. If it has found a headpiece, it may also emit vocal sounds. If the scavenger is killed, it will drop whatever is attached to it, but the pieces are always going to be low quality or broken. Else new are vessels that act as security devices for restricted areas. Pretty simple. If it detects an intruder, it will pursue them and explode in a sneeze. As for what this sneeze is composed of, it isn't quite clear, but it is very dangerous. Worm breeders are hollowed vessels that can be used by large worms. Inside the worm breeder are biomechanisms that the worms may feed on. Of course, the hand is too big to fit inside, but getting too close will cause whatever worm is inside to burst out and attack, protecting its sustenance. The brain borer is immobile but very big, being around 3 times as tall as the hand and many times its length. It is located in an area known as the scavenger nest, which lies at the border of the magnetic garden. It is able to mentally command pseudo-vessels to feed him more biomass and also attack potential threats. It has grown beyond its limits thanks to the excess biomass it has consumed. Should the hand encounter brain borer before being fully developed, that being before it is fully developed over time since emerging from its nest, then the brain borer will simply take control of it, resulting in a game over. The brain borer acts as the first boss. That is, it has multiple phases and can only be defeated in a specific way. In its first and second phase, the brain borer fires waves of psychic projectiles and summons packs of the aforementioned scavengers. Fortunately though, it is unable to attack physically. In its third phase, flesh spikes burst out from the floor as the brain borer desperately tries to kill the hand. There is, though, a secret phase. If the hand does not suffer any damage during the fight, brain borer will, after the fight, summon a more powerful and hostile copy of the hand. As the brain borer is damaged, its frontal plate will slowly fall to pieces, revealing 2 bulging eyes amidst a face of loose veins, a set of upper teeth, and a very dry tongue. After defeating the brain borer, a mem unit can be found within its corpse. This is one of the 2 types of mind units, mem and inf. They are fragments of knowledge and can be found all over the world. These mind units can also be corrupted, proving dangerous if equipped, but they can be sold. Inf units are somewhat common and can be used to learn information, or as currency with those who seek knowledge. Meanwhile, mem units, such as the one found in Brainborer, are far more rare and contain a memory of an individual. Uncorrupted mind units can be accessed at any time through the hand's mind cell. When a mind unit is traded, its contents are copied in the vessel's mind cell. Brainborer's mem unit reads the following.
This feeble body keeps falling apart. I was designed to expire, but I keep fighting against my very nature. I will raise. I will become something greater. I will make a majestic incarnation out of this purposely flawed shell.
The flooded repair center is accessible through an outlet pipe hidden underwater in a residual lake inside the magnetic garden. Due to its hidden entrance, the vessels that have made this area their home have either rotted away or adapted to the environment. Long exposure to the water to modern vessels can cause damage to its mind cell, causing the vessel to begin to act rather strange. The vessels inside this repair center have become mutated, consuming the resources of the ruins to keep themselves active, or whilst preying on other vessels for bile and modifications. Due to the aforementioned adaptation, these mutated vessels have largely become water dependent. Going back to more vessels. The Sabbath Gok is your nemesis type enemy in Godhusk. That is, of course, a nod to Resident Evil 3's nemesis. The Sabbath Gok is a highly intelligent and powerful vessel that seeks to destroy anything that carries forbidden data. It will alert the hand of its presence via a loud shriek, shortly after which it will begin to chase. Should it make contact, it will destroy the hand violently. Sabbath Gok is very tall and because of this cannot fit through many doors. Besides using this as a means to escape, the hand can also drop a piece it may be interested in to distract it for a few seconds. Wetslung are aquatic vessels that stalk from a distance. Should the hand turn its back on it, it will slowly approach to attack. Tulp are common vessels that are actually quite friendly to other non-hostile vessels. This includes the hand. Should the hand enter combat whilst it is occupied by a tulp, the tulp will protect the hand. They can also be pet. Tulp cannot follow the hand through water and elevated areas. Instead of returning the favour by abandoning the hand, Tulp will simply lie down and wait for the hand to come back. If they ever do, that is. A useful tool in the hand's journey from here is the bile irritant. It fires spikes made from irradiated bile that destroy exoskeletons quite easily. Another useful tool is the M-manipulator, which can grab light objects from afar and transport noxious materials. It can also be used as a weapon by detaching protective plates from other vessels. Some of these stolen pieces can even be equipped on the hand, such as faces and limbs. But those that are corrupted or not compatible may even corrupt the whole of the hand's body if they are equipped. Speaking of pieces, the Devourer is a vessel that consumes and regurgitates them in the form of projectiles. Getting too close to the Devourer will cause it to tear off one of the hand's pieces and devour it, most likely firing projectiles shortly after. Should it run out of blood bulbs, the Devourer will explode in a violent, powerful blast. After the Devourer is defeated, anything it ate can be retrieved from it. Nubili are rare vessels that creep around or inside the main pipes of the flooded repair center. Whilst inside a pipe, they can move twice as fast and stretch their head to the hand as they grip on each side of the pipe. If they are outside of the pipe, they do not gain these advantages, but flee inside a nearby pipe should they lose half their life. In the depths of the flooded repair center is a water-based protocecil known as Gene. They can be found in 4 different states of growth, from smallest to largest: Jewel, Newborn, Infant, and Prince. The infant is hostile, as is the prince. A jewel is essentially the egg, and if they are destroyed, a newborn will hatch from it and begin developing rapidly. Gene is what gives birth to the jewels and can be found in the palace, being the aforementioned depths of the flooded repair center. She exists to mass produce these eggs, causing much of the palace to be populated with her spawn. Gene is yet another boss and is aggroed upon trespassing into the palace. Like the Brainborer, she has 3 distinctive phases. In her first phase, she plunges her tongue and throws jewels, aka her eggs, at the hand. As well as this, her tongue can cause pieces to snap off the hand and cause heavy damage to them. The hand can also be heavily damaged should it be dragged into her mouth. Phase 2 begins with an infant peeking from her cavity, attacking the hand if it gets too close. As well as this, Jean's princes also swarm if Jean herself cries out. Phase 3 is the final phase and begins when Jean expels the infant from her cavity, causing it to become aggro. By this point, Jean collapses and dies, meaning the only thing left to kill is the infant. It is around this point in Godhusk that we get some insight into lore. Essentially, we get a bit of exposition after the fight with Jean, including the reason why the vessels in this world have gone rogue. At least maybe, it isn't fully known at this time. A figure known as Obek or Zero Beck exists, and by moving around a bit of wordplay, it seems that it was once essential to the stability of vessel pods, and the information given to them via amniotic fluid, which eventually gives them a form suited for its primary purpose. In recent centuries though, Obek has become inoperative. Since its disconnection, nests were abandoned and maintenance systems for vessels quickly became non-existent. The latter led to vessels having to find their own way through this enigmatic world, surviving off resources and replacements they come across. Because of this, many biosystems have become less sophisticated, leading to the amalgamations we come across, vessels of poor connections and excessive wires. The page after shows many possibilities when it comes to the hand, being what certain combinations of limbs will lead to. For example, you could turn it into an orb of thought, which is listed as not optimal, or a mobility expert where the hand will walk on all fours. The blood tank build involves large use of heavy parts. Interestingly, there exists a build titled Human, which seems to be a well-balanced bipedal form. The wheel, which involves 4 sets of legs to be attached to the hand, involves it rolling around at high speeds, but it cannot really defend itself. A sort of speedrun build, perhaps. Surviving in this world requires sacrifice, and sometimes limbs must be detached to escape a grapple, or to replace them with ones from fallen enemies. The variety of vessels is nigh infinite. With the mind units acquired from the recent fights, a new area called Gulk is accessible. This small place was once an information, research and storage center, but is now only operated by a singular vessel, whose sole purpose is to keep in charge of it despite its state. Inside Gulk are the remains of many vessels who have plugged themselves into the information management system within it, essentially killing themselves as their mind and spirit abandons this plane of existence. The aforementioned vessel also resides here, known as Oracle. Oracle is the vessel that powers Gulk and allows this ascension to take place. It also acts as a vendor, selling various pieces the hand can attach to itself. Mogma are crawling pseudo-vessels that move across walls and ceilings, often where visibility is limited. Unfortunately for them, they can be spotted as they drool goo from their mouths from where they hang. After catching prey, Mogma will drag it into its nest. Should the hand be captured, it may break free by shaking rapidly. There are 2 types of Mogma, spawn and mothers. Mothers possess a bite much stronger than its birth, being the spawn, and are much larger. The spawn, meanwhile, are incredibly fast and relentless. Going back to the path that leads directly from Jean is a drop that leads to the area known as the Nest of Wires. This area is filled with tunnels and is riddled with unauthorized pseudo-vessel production plants that are operated by vessels whose sole purpose is to do so. A common vessel here is the large worm. Thanks to their biology, they can join their bodies together and split from each other at will. If they are connected, a destroyed blood bulb on one of them will trigger a chain reaction that will destroy all of the others. They can be found alone or in groups that reach up to 30 units. Segafly are very hostile vessels that are also found here. They typically patrol paths that lead to production plants or tanks that birth vessels. The most troubling part about Segafly is that they alert nearby hostile vessels should they encounter an intruder. Striking a Segafly from behind whilst they are unaware of the attacker will cause them to become stunned for a short amount of time. As well as shooting projectiles, the Segafly can destroy both limbs and weapons with a powerful bite should the hand get too close. In the Nest of Wires are vessels known as unforgiving orbs that can poke out of anywhere within the area and attack. These attacks have 2 variations. They can form a wall of 2 to 4 of its kind that are harmful to the touch and impenetrable. The second form is a face made of their 2 eyes and a mouth, which is massively violent and deadly. At this point in Godhusk, the hand would have come across various containers in the form of eggs, known as egg chests. Splitting these open will reveal their contents, which can be anything from weapons, limbs, and mine units. Time capsules are another type of container which contain items from the past. And keys are small spheres that are used to open certain doors and the time capsules. Some time capsules are hiding spots for certain pseudo-vessels that wait for other vessels to open them, typically grabbing them with long tendrils and dragging them in to attack them. Shooting time capsules until they overheat is a good way to force these creatures out. Should the hand use a key on a trapped time capsule, the key will not be consumed. Now let's go back to that Obek figure that I mentioned. In a hidden passage within the nest of wires, the hand may come across Obek itself, described to be the supreme engineer, a hulking mass of metal and wires with countless vessel pods all around it with a singular, dead eye in the middle. Any of these pods can be entered should the hand be equipped with one of a few unique limbs. Entering one of these pods will actually mark the end of the game here. Well, kind of. It will give one of 7 endings. That's right, 7. This specific ending is called Husk. As we go through the game, more paths will open to us and more endings. Near the end of the video I will go into more detail, but I will mention them in passing until then. At this point we get some exposition.
Obek was powered by 7 beings capable of supplying infinite energy. They were known as angels. When the second angel suddenly vanished, Obek's influence faded away, and the world began to fall apart. The world has long remained in a state of stagnation. The vessels were not able to find a solution, and eventually lost their minds in an endless hunt for the guilty.
Should the hand depart from Obek and descend further into the depths of the nest of wires, it will eventually enter the area known as the Pillar of Mercy. This area is described as a colossal memorial, and the hand can navigate through it via walkways that give a view of the massive statues connected to the various pillars. Moving to the end of the series of walkways will grant access to a control panel. This control panel can be activated with a special key. Doing so will let the hand rotate specific parts of the statues in the area. And should the hand change the statue's appearance to the one found in Hideout, which is an area reached later on, a passage will open that leads into a megastructure via its mouth, being the Pillar of Mercy proper. Inside the pillar itself is a spiral staircase that wraps around a wrapped, dead figure. The staircase leads to nowhere, but a humming ambience inside it is apparent. Atop the stairs is a rare limb inside of one of the statue's nostrils. Once obtained, the humming will abruptly stop. Further down is the acrylic pool, a place of chemical and synthetic waste. At the shore of this waste is a living structure known as Ancestor. Dropping an item in the hole in front of Ancestor will cause a gush of resin to shower the hand. This grants immunity for 4 hits. If a piece, such as a limb, is removed or changed, the effect will stop as well. Should the hand remove all pieces before the resin is applied, it will form a new body around itself known as the Clear Vessel. This vessel is immune to all harmful substances, but the life system of the hand is compromised after 1 hit. Going back to more vessels, the love bug is constantly giving birth, meaning that if one of her children is destroyed, another will emerge from the many holes in its back. These offspring are very delicate and can even be killed with a simple step. Should one of them be killed near their mother, she will run away whilst giving birth to more. Her children are a nuisance though, as they are hostile. Some of them, however, can be found hidden away in pipes inside the nest of wires, and instead of attacking, these will simply follow the hand in a line until they are harmed. Lovebug has a small chance of dropping the Love Blaster when killed, which will shoot 1 to 4 love children that track and immolate enemies nearby. The next area is the Hematil Meadows, which can be accessed from either Gulk Steps or the Nest of Wires. This area is heavily corrosive thanks to the fumes nearby, making the hand's exoskeleton susceptible to melting in mere seconds. The emitters that expel the fumes cannot be destroyed. There are certain pieces that can be used to help against the corrosive effects, and there are certain shelters nearby in the form of P capsules. More on those in a moment. A combination of pieces bought from Oracle back at Gulk can grant access to the form called the MBO Shell, which can protect the hand from the fumes here as long as the hand has all of the pieces equipped. Whilst equipped, the hand is incredibly slow, but the hand is at least immune to all of the chemical damage. P-capsules, being the shelters in this area, were designed to clean and repair vessels that performed maintenance, including on the vessels that converted the hematil into oxygen. Most of these capsules are now, of course, out of order. To cure corrosion, the capsules seal up and shower whatever is inside with amniotic fluid. This fluid contains the vessel's original data and repairs any external damage. During this time, the pod glows. If you pick a specific P capsule to rest inside of, you will encounter a vessel known as GPCH. This vessel is a clergy machine. GPCH is described to be a modified vessel with a peculiar ambition, and reveals a secret location known as Hideout in exchange for a specific piece.
The old iron, the new flesh, the old wires, the new blood, old mothers, new machines. We are sons of the unborn. I want to see what they saw, feel what they felt. Please, grant me access to the invisible world.
At this point, we will get more exposition regarding the state of the world.
Long ago, the oxygen that made the world habitable was being slowly infected with polyp, a unicellular spore-like organism. These particles germinated on contact, creating thin bronze strings that solidified instantly, the result of a frustrated fertilization. Vessels developed a new respiratory system, able to safely breathe the polluted air. All of the vessels that used the outdated system quickly collapsed.
The respiratory system mentioned here is very simple. Once the contaminated oxygen enters the vessel, the spore is filtered and neutralized. Meanwhile, the oxygen is absorbed by the life system, allowing blood bulbs to be refilled once more. We learn that the high density of polyp in the air can cause a thick fog that heavily reduces visibility. Some pseudo-vessels use this fog to their advantage to either hide or set up ambushes, making the areas with the high density of the spore-like organism very dangerous. Within the hematil meadows exist peeled vessels, highly damaged vessels that have been damaged by the corrosive fumes but have ultimately made the area their hunting grounds. The corrosion has caused all of their pieces and biomechanisms to melt into a single mass. These vessels have a larger hunger for bile and are swift thanks to that and their high energy. Despite this hunger for bile, they do not benefit from consuming it. Their systems are completely melted after all, and even in its new whole state, it doesn't benefit one bit. An anomaly exists in this area called the living fume. Dense clouds of hematil that move with a will of their own but can be dispersed if they are shot enough. They are created with the mixture of hematil and polyp, being the spore-like substance that killed vessels many ages past, before vessels eventually evolved to filter it. The emitters themselves were actually designed by Obeck to fight polyp contamination. The corrosive fumes drastically reduced the amount of spores in the air for a long time, but when Obeck shut down, the fumes quickly went out of control. Progressing, the hand may come across Chimera, rare, non-hostile vessels that run away with aggressive and erratic movements. The limbs it has equipped are random, causing its loophole to be, well, the same. Should it escape from the hand, it will never appear again in that area, meaning that it is a very vital prey for the hand should it want one of its limbs. Its headpiece in particular can be a very rare one, granting the wearer the capability to dream. One of the many eerie vessels is the Duxianquin. This vessel essentially acts as a rotting, fleshy mine. Getting too close to it causes a large appendage to quickly erect to grab the nearest vessel. They used to be ordinary vessels, but after suffering a malfunction, their bodies collapsed and eventually rotted to a state of synthetic flesh. Their minds, however, remained active. Should the hand get grabbed, the mine will attempt to insert its mind cell inside of it. The next area is the outer crust, a vast area of the world that is inhabitable for most vessels, thanks to the intense heat. To mitigate the heat, the hand must be equipped with an insulating body, or seek shelter within the shade. Staying in the heat for too long will cause the hand's body to overheat, melting in a matter of seconds. During this overheating state, the hand's speed increases rapidly as it seeks shade. In the outer crust are small polyp-based organisms that grow naturally called rambling crust. They move in formations and are no bigger than the hand's leg. Consuming one of them refills one blood bulb, which can be helpful if the hand has been scorched. Sometimes these vessels will gather around bigger ones for sustenance, as they cannot tell the difference between themselves and other life forms. There exist advanced vessels that wander around the outer crust, leaving a sort of slime trail when they walk. They can shoot projectiles that cover the hand in a thick ooze that hardens instantly, but it is able to be shaken off with enough effort. A rather large sightly life form that exists is the Red Father. It moves at a very slow pace and provides shade to those below it. A more aggressive sightly life form here is the Red Walker. It spends most of its time in the shade, typically in caves or under the Red Father. It has a large amount of defense thanks to its thick skin, with its only weak spot being inside its mouth. As well as a powerful bite, it can lift its huge jaw upward and shriek to stun the hand. It is hostile toward almost every organism in the outer crust, including its own kind. The Red Dome is an area within the vastness of the outer crust. Inside the Red Dome is Sage V2, a vessel committed to the preservation of the outer crust. As well as this, it has some supplies and information it can trade. Around the outside of the Red Dome are small, non-violent sightseers, who simply roam around. As well as these, refrigerant ponds can be found outside that will provide immunity against the heat for a short amount of time. Outside of these ponds are small crab-like vessels who feed on the water, so they too can resist the heat for a small period of time. If the hand subjects Sage V2 inside the Red Dome to extreme violence, an inf unit named New Beginning and a key item can be found. Should the hand leave Red Dome after this point, the dormant vessels outside will become aggressive. The inf unit acquired from Sage V2 reads the following.
Progress is what we call this ever-growing curse upon our kin. We lost our flesh, then our thoughts, and now our souls are rotting away inside these shells. We stole the divine beings and called it a gift from heaven. Centuries of evolution feasting upon our abominable acts. We must force the birth of a new era. The salvation of this world can only be achieved by redemption. Free the innocents. Death to Obek.
More on this later. Throughout the outer crust exist crust cells, cytine organisms that are commonly found throughout the area, but more so on the uppermost layers. They are delicate and easy to destroy. The areas covered in these have a richer biodiversity. Despite their perhaps static appearance, they are capable of movement. They have the ability to crawl very slowly. They are rarely seen in motion, however. They use the remains of vessels as nourishment. When a crust shell detects nearby activity, it releases spores in that direction. The amount of spores released depends on the crust cell's stage of growth. These spores are harmless to the hand, but a high concentration of them may trigger malfunctions in its respiratory system, causing the hand to sneeze and make the equipped headpiece fly off. Another sighty here is the crust nodule. They typically operate in areas where crust cells are present. They take care of them, typically helping them propagate whilst protecting them from possible threats. They hide inside their shell whenever a weapon is pointed at it, making them quite a nuisance for the bloodthirsty. On the outer walls of the outer crust are umbilical walls, enormous appendages that transport oxygen to the outer crust's underground arterial system. They also prevent other organisms from entering the caverns of outer crust. To get through, the hand must find the other end of the umbilical wall in order to destroy it and clear the way. Inside the cave near Red Dome is Adam 2, obsolete transportation devices that were commonly used to travel through the outer crust, back when it was habitable and not scorched. It is able to climb vertical surfaces with ease and can even attack with a powerful bite. After receiving enough damage, it will eventually explode, obliterating the hand if it's close enough and the land around it. Fortunately, Adam 2 gives a loud alert shortly before this happens. If you think this area can't get any worse, there are smaller organisms called Kib. They deal damage as well as steal the hand's limbs. There are also masked variants of them that bury themselves into the ground so they cannot be hurt by regular projectiles. There are also the Super Kib that can deal damage and drag the hand's body, and the Soa Kib that move in packs, laying eggs and picking up items. The Blind Kib are harmless and shield the smaller organisms. Hungry Kib can lay eggs in the hand's storage should it sneak into it. If they aren't disposed of fast enough, the hand's inventory will eventually be devoured. Now, the King Kib is very aggressive. It possesses an armor like the Masked Kib, but is significantly stronger. Its attacks are also far more powerful than those of the other members of its species. In the far east region of the Outer Crust are Crust Saints, horrific beings that plague the area. They hide beneath the surface, covering the entrance of its nest with its rock-solid abdomen. It constantly emits a loud buzzing noise that is only interrupted when a nearby presence is detected, including the hand. If the hand attacks or gets too close to this rock-solid abdomen, the Crust Saint will swiftly crawl out of its hole and attack the hand until it can drag it into its nest for consumption. The hand can avoid this by walking slowly whenever it is near a burrow, carefully listening to see if the buzzing stops. If it does stop, well, it knows the hand is there. Within the dunes of the Outer Crust is a pitfall. Inside this pitfall is the Crust Eater. If the hand steps into its territory, the pitfall will reveal itself. If the hand doesn't move out of the slippery slope fast enough, it will be instantly devoured by the Crust Eater. If the hand manages to escape, Crust Eater will go back into hiding, waiting for another victim to come along. Should anything fall into its pincers, it will be devoured, including items and pieces. If the hand feeds something dangerous to the Crust Eater and causes it to either die or flee, the hand will gain access to the secret path that leads to many areas that are typically blocked, including the other side of the umbilical wall that was mentioned earlier. One of these many hallways leads to the Cardinal Chamber. Only the ears of the Blighted can access the Cardinal Chamber, meaning that the hand must empty its bile valve of white bile in order to enter the sacred terrain. Inside the Cardinal Chamber is a resting figure whose intestines are poured out before it, its mask of two faces staring endlessly forward. The hand can meditate alongside the resting figure in order to obtain an empty chalice. Submerging the empty chalice into the red liquid fills it to the brim, turning it into the Red Communion. If the hand consumes the Red Communion whilst equipped with specific pieces, the hand will no longer be a vessel. This causes another ending, ectasis. Again, I will expand on this later, but essentially the hand sheds its skin. Now, what exactly was scorching the Outer Crust? Emera 12, named after the personification of day in Greek mythology, also known as God's Eye or the Light of Hope. This mechanical satellite, or, well, sun, illuminates the surface of the planet and provides warmth. However, the lack of maintenance has caused it to emit an excessive amount of heat. Moving elsewhere exists Rust Town, a major settlement inhabited by vessels that have managed to retain their sense of reason and desire to escape the violence of the world. Rust Town is different from the other areas, as the collapse of Obek and the centuries of abandonment doesn't fully affect this area. Its weapon-inhibiting signal is still running in its core, disarming any threatening force that enters its range. Since most of the vessels in Rust Town are peaceful and afraid to leave, they have stopped consuming bile, which has turned them almost immobile. The dwellers of Rust Town are mostly hidden inside their houses or in a catatonic state induced by a lack of bile. The hand can knock on their doors to communicate in a limited capacity with them. Each resident has a name and a title. For example, Tolip is the Coward Vessel, and Eve is the Bile Expert. While in Rust Town, the hand has access to multiple facilities, such as the convenience stores, to acquire supplies for its journey. There are also healing cabins that the hand can rest in to recover from injuries. Most of these establishments are those that are either automatic or have been rebuilt for a new purpose. The hand may also come across Butcher, a limb merchant that can be located in a dome near the entrance of Rust Town. Butcher sells limbs of all kinds, including ones that are corrupted or broken. These, though, have drastically reduced prices. If Butcher feels threatened by a weapon, it will refuse to open the shop until the weapon has been unequipped. It's in Rust Town that the hand also encounters Godhusk's fast travel system for the first time. The player, though, must work to connect this system. Essentially, throughout the world are master pipes. Up until Rust Town, the hand would encounter these dormant pipes, but not know how to repair them. Within Rusttown is the only functioning one up until that point, and the hand learns that to repair them it simply needs to fill its deposits with bile. After repair, they can be used to travel great distances in a matter of minutes through the use of their ducts. Because the master pipe here works already, the area can basically be used as a hub and safe zone. A very helpful character here is Eve, the bile expert, who runs the bile deposit in Rusttown's core. Here the hand can purchase different types of bile containers and upgrade the capacity of its bile valve. Talking to Eve causes them to say the following.
I have noticed the red bile has special properties unique to it. By filling your bile valve with red bile or a mix of red and white bile, you can slightly tweak your body's performance. Red bile, unlike us, those nasty things from outer crust can distill their own fuel. We will probably run out of it at some point, and they will take over our land and feast on our living carcasses. What a sick joke.
Hiding in Rusttown's core is M03, titled the Mother Vessel. It sits in this metallic chamber and cradles smaller infant-sized vessels. Approaching, it too will talk to the hand.
I saw what the little creatures do. They create life from nothing, without any command or birthing tank. Do birthing tanks feel love when they give birth to us? Do they feel proud when they see us grow? I surely do. I made these vessels out of scraps and gave them a part of myself. I am now a life giver, and they my children. Now I understand the creatures. I would give my life for them at any moment too. If you come across any vessel scraps longing for life, bring them to me, and I will give them life.
Despite being described as a mother, M03 seems to use male pronouns. Giving him lost scraps will cause him to give them life, creating newborn vessels that populate the room as long as the hand provides him the means to do so via the lost scraps. Delivering enough scraps to him will cause M03 to give the hand one of his creations as a gift. BB, which can be named by the player up to 6 letters long. Its simple purpose is to provide emotional support to the hand, running away or hiding behind it if danger comes. It has 3 blood bulbs in its life system. If the hand visits M03 whilst BB is with it, it will jump into its mother's hands. From here, M03 will sing a lullaby which heals BB completely. Should BB be sadly destroyed, M03 can rebuild it with lost scraps, unless the hand destroyed BB itself, in which case he will refuse. In the corner of Rusttown is a locked dome. Finding a way inside is a tunnel that leads down to Rusttown's depths. This area is interconnected with other underground areas, such as ones found in the nest of wires and the outer crust. This area is pitch black, meaning that to even have a chance to navigate it, the hand must be equipped with a light source. A unique, archaic vessel that dwells in the shadows here is the Abyss Walker. The Abyss Walker is extremely fast, fleeing from light sources in a fraction of a second. If the hand wishes to communicate with him or attack him, it must stay unmoving in darkness and wait for the Abyss Walker to approach. Due to the lack of sight, the only real way to see how close it is the breathing sounds as the Abyss Walker gets closer. Collector Zig is a mad vessel in a rampage of endless dismembering. He patrols the outskirts of Rusttown, endlessly collecting new pieces for his collection that can be found in the area known as Trophy Hall. More on that in a moment. Should he spot the hand, Collector Zig will emit a metallic shriek and begin his hunt. The thing about Zig though is that he doesn't actually seek to kill the hand. His tactic is to freeze prey in a paralyzing flash before forcefully taking the pieces from them. Painful, but it won't kill them. To the south of Rusttown's outskirts is the aforementioned Trophy Hall, pridefully filled with Zig's trophies. It can be accessed with an exoskeleton key, being a rare and unique single-use item that can unlock any regular door, or by defeating Zig and stealing his key. Trophy Hall will have up to 7 to 10 random, high-value limbs and weapons alongside some unusable, broken ones. As well as this, it will display every non-unique piece that the hand has equipped up until that point. Should the hand have the clear vessel still at this point, which is a massive feat in itself considering the amount of travelling to do whilst being vulnerable, and also offer at least 5 pieces to Zig, he will offer the hand free access into his den, as long as the clear vessel remains equipped, which it should if you don't change pieces or take damage. Should the hand break into the trophy hole with the exoskeleton key, Zik will shortly show up afterward. Hiding or leaving the trophy hole before this happens causes this encounter to be skipped. Even if the hand escapes though, Zik will begin hunting soon after. In the rust town's outskirts, a large dome can be climbed on. Atop it is a large crack that can only be broken with the Unmaker, a powerful drilling tool that can break through obstacles such as this one, but is simply too slow for combat. Drilling inside grants access to the area known as Red House, a sealed sanctuary located here in the outskirts. One of the only dangerous creatures here is the Yellow Watcher. Yellow Watchers are hostile sightseeing organisms that leave a trail of red behind from their tendrils as they slither around. They can overheat the hand by simply staring at it, which can eventually cause a meltdown. How to avoid this is quite obvious. Hide from the glare or shoot at its large and obvious eye. Yellow Watcher can occasionally drop a yellow glare, a heat ray capable of overheating other vessels and pseudo-vessels, but is ineffective against sightseeing organisms. The trade-off is that the hand will also slowly heat up whilst yellow glare is firing. A harmless vessel in Red House is the Gardener. Their purpose is to nurture and sustain Sapioma, but were left behind when the structure was sealed. Despite them literally decaying, they still remain operative and loyal to their purpose. Sapioma is the last of its kind, a completely non-artificial lifeform from another time kept alive by Gardener. Sapioma is the only organism capable of producing oxygen without having to convert anything else. A seed can be taken from Sapioma, but this will actually instantly kill it, as Sapioma has remained on the verge of death for centuries. This seed can only be placed in Living Whole. You know, that vessel mentioned at the very start that sometimes can be found and used as storage for the hand. Alternatively, the hand may consume the seed to grow one blood bulb. As the seed grows inside Living Whole, its appearance will change. It has 5 distinctive stages, eventually forming a flower with a neutral, empty face at its centre. In order to grow, the seed requires tears, clear liquid secreted by organisms and vessels capable of feeling emotion. They are rare and must be collected directly from the source. Once the seed reaches its final stage, it will bloom into Lastborn Cassiel. When this happens, Living Whole will stop following the hand and begin to make its way to the outer crust instead. Cassiel can be removed from Living Whole and stored in the inventory of the hand, causing the flower to enter a profound slumber. Lastborn Cassiel can be used in 2 ways. The first is to transport it and put it into the primordial vessel, which is expanded later on, and the second is to place it inside the empty pod beneath Obek, leading to another ending known as Rapture. Alright, let's backtrack a bit to the nest of wires. One of the clogged up residual pipes here can be broken with the Unmaker, that drill item that we now have. Going through, the hand will come across the gestation chamber, an immense biomachine used for the expansion of Obek and the creation of exceptional vessels. This chamber is the only one remaining from the 5 original ones near Obek. As the hand approaches the structure, a metallic rattle can be heard echoing from far away, only becoming clearer the closer the hand gets to the structure. The inside of the biomachine can be accessed by a locked gate in one of its sides. The exoskeleton key will come in handy here. Inside is a singular vessel, Unborn, floating in silence. It does not attack nor communicate with the hand, and if the hand leaves, the vessel will completely disappear. If it is destroyed though, 2 limbs will be dropped, as well as a corrupted mem unit. These limbs are very important for later on. The Ripper is a rare and hostile vessel that patrol restricted areas of high importance, such as the gestation chamber. It is strong, agile and resistant and was originally made as a security measure. Unlike many other vessels, it was actually created after the fall of Obek with the intention of finding the traitors of the artificial god and preventing further attacks on it. This lore alone is an expansion on the fall of Obek. Eget B are tiny and elusive automatons that carry valuables. It is essentially a moving container, commonly found throughout the world. It runs away from the hand at first sight. If I was to compare them to anything, it would be the crystalline lizards from the Dark Souls series. Items and bile can be looted from them if they are destroyed. Now, earlier on I mentioned the primordial vessel. It isn't quite clear where it is found in Godhusk itself, but the guidebook describes it as a heavy ancestral relic, even older than vessels, being a testament to a forgotten era. A faint breathing can be heard from within it. The hand can carry it on its back, but this will drastically lower the hand's mobility. The primordial vessel also is extremely fragile and will shatter with a single hit. It can, though, be coated in resin with the help of Ancestor to prevent it from breaking. A secret area accessible from the outer crust is Tomb, a large and ancient monument with a small cavity in the middle of it, where the primordial vessel can be placed. Doing so will cause the monument to collapse into dust, revealing a hidden passage known as the Great Hole. Doing this will also destroy the primordial vessel, as the arduous task of carrying it here is now done. From within is a muffled murmur. Great Hole is a labyrinth of tunnels that sometimes leads to dead ends and collapsing floors. The chambers found here have abnormally large organs, such as eyeballs, tongues, lungs, and pancreas. Following the murmurs will lead the hand to a room with the remains of a rare vessel resting against a wall, tightly holding a red polearm. Going closer will cause a disembodied voice to warn the hand.
Save your prayers, for she, the ever brighter, has long abandoned us. Her bronze tears poured over us. The grieving for her children sank our world into ruthless darkness. Blinded by our pride, forever condemned, only her mercifulness is what is left.
The hand may take the polearm from the remains of the vessel, Deopites, a rare weapon of daunting destruction that instantly kills anything that opposes that who wields it. It has a massive downside though. It is gone after a singular use. As the book itself says, it was left behind by a mother of light, whose last wish was to free her children from the eternal torment of mankind. It isn't fully clear what this means. This weapon, Deopites, is the only weapon capable of killing divine beings. As the book tells us, angels exist in a plane away from all beings and vessels, but sometimes they cross the veil to exist in this world. Even in their tangible form, they are immune to all forms of physical damage. With this weapon in its possession, the hand is perhaps one of the most dangerous figures in the world of Godhusk. In Rusttown's outskirts is the radio tower, a grand building with countless archives left abandoned, its only occupant absorbed in an endless mission. The broadcaster is a non-aggressive vessel of vast knowledge, created for archive maintenance tasks and informative purposes. His duties, though, have long lost their meaning. He speaks using poor quality audio recordings from the archive, preserving each significant audio recording in history, digitalizing and carefully archiving them. If the hand kills the broadcaster, then it will acquire the title of broadcaster instead. If this happens, all others will refer to it by this name from now on. No other repercussions come from this. Broadcaster's speech is the following.
The floor is red, the sky is black, the mother is gone, and so is the sun. My lungs, they burn, the pain, the blood. Mother, please spare me. I saw her again, the girl in my dreams, but this time she was full of joy. Her eyes were dripping sapphire tears, and her skin was casting a gentle glow. What did she say this time? She whispered, "It's over. Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, ora pro nobis." Year 0, vessel broadcaster about to check data storage. Tower functions stable. Broadcasting stable. Storage, error, full, error. Please empty storage device. Am I condemned to forever remember these borrowed memories? These walls are my my prison. I live surrounded by ghosts, memories of every single error and triumph. A better life. I have witnessed desires, fears, loss, and love. I wish I lived and died. But here, I remain as a mere spectator, a keeper of the voices. Vessel, will you remember the one who remembers? Perhaps my existence is not worth remembering. For what have I done? Besides thinking what's been thought, walking what's been walked, I don't have control. Bye, bye, bye. The first ever noiseless, completely silent drape runners. Keep your curtains quiet.
Despite being designed for this purpose, the exposure to the recordings has reshaped his body and mind massively. As we can see, should the hand choose to kill the broadcaster, it will tragically ask it if it will, quote, remember the one who remembers, end quote. As for the Latin, it roughly translates into, the Lord is with you, blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. Pray for us. At this point, the book expands on mind units. They often offer a glimpse into the past, give important hints or forgotten thoughts. Long ago, the mind units were commonly used as information storage devices. Any lived moment or thought could be captured by them and turned into a physical unit. These physical units are called vessels. They played a very important role in information wars, as with them, secrets and forbidden data became more easily obtained. Disconnection was often used as a desperate measure to protect one's data. This process corrupted the mind cell and made its units inaccessible. We see here a mind unit containing information on an old world machinist. Here we learn that the world that once was is now referred to as the old world. Near the end of the book are all of the states that the hand and also the other characters may receive. Other words for states are buffs, debuffs, debilitations, or simply effects. There are a total of 12 states in Godhusk. All of them have their own little icon that can be seen on pages related to things that will inflict a specific state. If Godhusk was a real game, then I imagine this page would be a heavily referenced one. The states are as follows: congested, corroded, overheated, exposed, being when a headpiece is missing, mind-controlled, coated, corrupted, paralysed, oozed, standby, calcified, being hardened to a point of not being able to move, and default, which is the state of which the hand isn't feeling any different. The states themselves don't have a list of what exactly they do, only when they are relevant do they sometimes get explained. I will do the heavy lifting and explain them as much as I can though. Congested seems to refer to the hand's inventory being full, which will obviously slow it down. Corroded implies the hand has melted due to acid or something similar. Overheated happens when the hand gets too hot. We know as well that when this effect is in place that the hand, and perhaps everything else, will have its movement speed drastically increased, as it finds a place to cool down. Exposed, as stated already, is simply when the hand has no headpiece, exposing it greatly. Mind-controlled is self-explanatory and can happen during the brain borer fight. Coated happens when the hand is coated in a substance of sorts. Corrupted isn't too clear, but we know that pieces can be corrupted. Perhaps this happens if the hand equips a corrupted piece, as we know that is very dangerous. Paralysed, if we look at some games, disrupts some of the hand's actions. Oozed is what happens when the hand is coated in a hard substance that, most of the time, can be shaken off with enough movement. These states act a lot toward the difficulty of the game, which so far I haven't mentioned much, and there is a reason for that. I expand further on this topic in the second act of the video, but for a lot of the time, Godhusk is pretty vague with how difficult things are. It doesn't describe things as easy or challenging, and I think this serves toward letting you, as the reader, decide how things will be. Many people may use this book as inspiration for a D&D campaign or something similar, and this will help people decide for themselves how things are, or as they are reading. It is undoubtable though that there are things that are obviously hard, especially the bosses and some areas that are difficult to handle if you aren't prepared enough. I like to think that Godhusk is a permadeath game, meaning that once you die, you will have to start over from the beginning. I will explain why I think this later on. In the lower depths of the nest of wires is the Sleepwalker, also known as the Dreaming Vessel. It is a unique vessel that blocks access to Beamer, being an area situated beneath Obek. In its dormant state, it crawls erratically around the room, lacking any kind of vision. It does, however, possess a very sensitive decibel detector, meaning it will be awakened by even the slightest sound. If it wakes up, it will attack the hand with a very powerful bite. It is even able to extend its neck in order to quickly bite the hand if it is running away. Throwing an item to bait the sleepwalker is a valid tactic. Moving the sleepwalker will grant access to another large metallic room known as Beamer. Inside Beamer itself is the Well of Greed, a blocked well made of primal waste. Getting too close to the well will cause a large black claw to emerge and attack the hand. Companions such as the aforementioned BB will be grabbed and violently devoured by the claw if it gets too close. The claw cannot be hurt by regular weapons. The hand can throw items into the well, but the item will be thrown out if it isn't pleased. If the hand takes off all of its pieces, the claw will instead be a pale, glowing hand. If the hand, meaning our player character, gives the glowing hand a scale, a rare item, it will clutch it and freeze. From here, the hand can take the glowing hand, as it acts as a piece. As for the scale and how to obtain it, we will get to that later on. Within Beamer is also a defective birthing tank. Inside are bodies and minds of dozens of unborn vessels combined together, forming a single organism that eventually bursts out of the pod. This organism is known as Ark. Ark is non-hostile and will consume anything that is thrown into its mouth, giving nothing in exchange should this happen. If it is attacked or fed something harmful, it will become aggressive and will try to assimilate the hand. Upon its destruction, it will drop the umbilical whip, a middle-range weapon capable of regenerating biomass with a mere touch. It can be used on the hand. However, if the hand still has Lastborn Cassiel in its possession and feeds it to Ark, it will gruesomely evolve into a new, elevated being, ending the journey as Cassiel Reborn takes form. This ending is called Purity.
How dare you taint the holiness of flesh? Curse the twisted that defile the gift of life. Mankind's illness has birthed a revolting fate. Now the illness is all that remains, for man is no more. Do not feel shame, vessel, for you are but a child of sin. Your impurity was inherited. As an act of mercy, I shall burn this rotten world.
So from here, the world is destroyed. Yeah, more on that later. So, soul transposition is a process by which it is possible to create divine life. Yes, we are jumping from one thing to another quite quickly because the book does the exact same thing. Worry not, I will try to make everything clearer soon. Either way, you are free to come up with your own interpretations of things by the end of the video and, well, feel free to leave a comment. Anyway, if the hand places the slumbering Lastborn Cassiel in the primordial vessel, and then pours the red communion into it, the form of the primordial vessel will change dramatically, and it will conceive a new life, the red egg. If the red communion is poured while the primordial vessel is empty, it will create the black egg. As far as I'm aware, the black egg has no use. The red egg is small enough to be added to the hand's inventory, and it pulsates whenever a motherly presence is nearby. If you've been listening, you should know who to go to with this. Offering it to MO3 will cause it to hatch after some time. Upon returning, the remains of MO3 can be found alongside some loot. The Life Giver, a weapon, can be found on its corpse. So what exactly hatched? Well, we don't know. But it was enough to kill MO3. This is a bad omen in itself. The egg was described to be divine, so it could be anything to do with the angels too, or perhaps something greater. It really isn't known. Going through all of this effort doesn't actually lead to an ending, it is simply something that can happen. At least the hand gets the Life Giver, which unfortunately doesn't actually have a detailed explanation for what it can do. After this, the book details MOPOs, standing for Motorized Organic Persecutor for optimal security. These are essentially automatic flying devices that follow or attach to the hand, with their own life system of 3 blood bulbs. The hand may extract its own blood bulbs to heal its MOPOs. They are designed for combat and possess some kind of weapon, typically a laser, bullet, missile, homing missile or bomb. But some of them are used for storage, item collection or enemy detection. They come in 3 distinct types: old, being the lost technology; new, built from scraps; or alive, parasitic organisms. The book details the appearance of some old and new mopos, but goes into extensive detail of alive mopos. The Commander mopos has the effect called vampirism. While connected to the hand, Commander jumps to the nearest enemy within range and starts to nibble on it, hurting the enemy but healing the hand. However, there are downsides. It will invert the controls of the hand and will feed off its blood bulbs if it gets hurt. A parasitic relationship, if you will. WAB-B is another mopos with an effect called Multiplier. It attaches to the hand's head and multiplies the damage done by its weapons and merges its life system with the hand's as a sort of shield. However, over time it will become more aggressive, trying to take over the hand's body more and more as time goes by. Discarding mopos that aren't alive, such as the new and old ones, will cause them to just fall on the floor. The alive ones, though, will just fly away, never to be seen again. There is a reason Beamer wasn't mentioned much when I first mentioned it, and that is because it has another area in it: the calcium pipes, the remains of a vast complex of pipelines that transported coolant to Obek. These pipes are found through Beamer and connect directly to Obek's chamber. These pipes are so long that they are described to be never-ending. They are filled with parasites that feed on the calcium found here. It is simply labyrinthine. The best way to navigate is to leave markings in the form of bioluminescent seeds, as any other item will be eaten by the scavengers. Within the tunnels are smooth, cone-shaped structures protruding from the floor, with many eyes at the bottom of them. These are hostile cytine organisms that bury the most vulnerable part of themselves underground. Their gaze will instantly calcify most vessels. These lifeforms are called phalange and will turn offensive if they detect the destruction of calcified lifeforms, or by simply seeing a vessel. They will spin their lower half to dig across the floor. A good way to avoid their gaze is by using their previous victims as cover. Hideout was an area that I mentioned way back in the Pillar of Mercy, and it is found here. It is a huge armoured complex that can be accessed through a calcified pipe, hidden behind several calcium walls that prevent passage, but they can be destroyed with a few hits. Hideout is surrounded by a garden of power cables falling from the abyss above and snaking down around the complex. The atmosphere here is oppressive with polyp, causing it to be difficult to navigate thanks to the fog. The location of Hideout is known only to the snakes, and it has been obscured from the eyes of the world for centuries. The snakes are a group, and some of them can actually be found upon entering Hideout, kneeling in front of a colossal metal door. 3 of the 4 snakes here have died thanks to the passing of time and the ever-growing rust. The survivor has wires connected to her, and they will start to shake as the hand approaches. She will then stand, ready to defend Hideout until her last breath. The 3rd snake is a fierce vessel supremely skilled in battle. Her attacks are swift and graceful, and even though she attacks with a short scythe blade, she is perhaps the hardest enemy yet. Upon her death, she will drop a scale, being the sort of item you will have to give the hand in Beamer. The door is now accessible. It remains firmly sealed, and the only way through it is by slotting an item into the chest cavity of the rusted figure in the design. So, remember the key item that I mentioned back if the hand killed Sage V2? It is actually an iron brick, the exact item needed here. Behind the great door lies the prayer room, an imposing sight that greets the hand instantly. In the middle of this chamber is a mural surrounded by ashes covered in red robes. At the foot of the mural is an inscription.
Let us fill your wounds with our foul blood, cleanse our skin with our tears of repentance, forgive our skins, O child of light, for our borrowed flesh was corrupted at birth.
In one of the corridors is a snake close to death, guarding the entrance to Altar, another area. When the snake is approached, she will stand, but unlike the 3rd snake, she cannot fight, simply collapsing to the ground. Another scale can be looted from her. Upon entering Altar, The hand will find itself in a room draped in tattered red clothes that meander up to a small altar surrounded by unlit candles. Atop the altar itself is a motionless, large pale head with childlike features. This head can be grabbed and equipped by the hand. More on its purpose later. As the hand wanders through the lower levels of Hideout, it may encounter horrific appendages called prosthetic claws. They will stop the hand's advance by dropping from the ceiling and dragging it back to the entrance. A good way to avoid it is to keep your eyes on the floor, as it casts a shadow as it falls. However, if the claw fails to catch the hand this way, it will chase it on the ground until it does so. Another creature here is the Wicked Finger. Large, disembodied fingers that simply crawl throughout the lower levels of Hideout. They seem to be harmless. More unidentified bones and flesh may be found here that are capable of spitting small blood projectiles and lashing threats with their veins. In Hideout, there is a very obvious trend of body parts, and as the lore puts it, they are spare body parts discarded by the snakes during the fabrication of a figure known as the Innocent. Continuing the descent to the bottom of Hideout, the hand will encounter a multitude of obstacles, as well as a towering figure lurking in the distance that seems to grow larger as the hand approaches. Its gaze is able to calcify the hand instantly, but the hand can use the environment to hide from the behemoth's gaze. This path ends in front of this titan. A withered colossus kept alive by the snakes. This is the aforementioned body of the Innocent. At least, its first body. Another lore drop is found here.
The second angel was severely injured in the process of extracting him from his pod. So, an artificial body was built in order to protect him from the ones who sought to restore the old order. This prosthetic body served as life support for the wounded angel.
This is the same angel mentioned and blamed for Obek going haywire. In fact, it was after this exact angel, the second angel, vanished. But what we can gather from this text is that the angel didn't leave at all. It was ripped from its pod, from these people known as the snakes. More on those later, because for now, the hand must face the behemoth. The behemoth, also known as the Innocent, has 3 phases. During its first phase, its body will attack the hand with everything it has. Regular and psychic projectiles, enormous claws, a piercing laser beam and a bite that can destroy the hand instantly. The Innocent truly does test the hand, and by extension the player's knowledge of Godhusk. The second phase begins after the body takes enough damage, or has used its laser too many times. The jaws will break and detach from the head. The body will start to crumble and act visibly exhausted, and will only strike physically and let out a shriek that can stun the hand. In its final phase, the skull will crack and its limbs will fall apart. A halo will form over its head, and the body will now attack with light projectiles and a more powerful calcifying gaze. During this final phase, the Innocent's prosthetic body can be destroyed instantly if dioptase is used. However, after this happens, regardless how the body was defeated, the Innocent will leave the prosthetic body behind in what looks to be a cocoon. Once emerged, the Innocent will unwrap its wings and take flight, never to be seen again. The hand, though, can attack the Innocent before his departure. This will trigger severe consequences.
My burden, my last breath, shall be carried by a vessel.
The innocent's true title is the apostate, a person who renounces a religious or political belief or principle. Perhaps, after all, leaving Obek wasn't against his will. Despite the snake's efforts, the apostate's wounds are still not fully healed, hence why the hand can injure him if it survives his attacks long enough. Before succumbing, though, the apostate will communicate a brief message. Unfortunately, this message is in a language unknown to us. After the fight, should the hand still have diapates, it can decide whether to end the apostate's suffering with the weapon or carry his body back to Obek and deposit it in the pod. If the hand decides to give him a merciful death, it will usher in a new cycle and age, leading to the epoch ending. If instead the hand puts the apostate back into its pod at Obek, the cycle will finally be restored, and the world will, seemingly, go back to normal. This is known as the wheelwright ending. From its beginnings as a limbless shell in the magnetic garden to having a god at its very feet, this is the tale of the hand, and this is the tale of Godhusk. Yep, that is the ending of the book. But this video isn't quite over yet. There are many questions in your head, I'm sure, and I, hopefully, have some of the answers. There are things though that just aren't explained, such as the message the apostate left the hand, which is in a language that is both made up and without translation. The only thing I can understand from it is that one of the letters, or runes, is the same symbol found on the depiction of the hand's meme units on the cover of the book. Before I get into that though, there is some back matter of the book that I would like to go over. There are fun little bits of technology intended for players of Godhusk to use, such as a controller, VR headset, and a means to play co-op with up to 5 players. There is also a disc for this supposed game and box art, as well as the start screen that I somewhat recreated at the start of this video for, well, immersion purposes. One small thing that I haven't discussed is whether the game is permadeath or not. But I actually think Godhusk will work better as a permadeath game, meaning that if you die, you start over. The author, Plastibu, may agree with me too, because there is absolutely zero mention of a save system in Godhusk, but that is me presuming. But why do I think it would work better as a permadeath game? First, Godhusk is written to be quite a brutal game. A lot of enemies have insta-kill attacks and are quite aggressive or have their own unique mechanics. Save scumming is a continuous connotation of easing difficulty in modern games, which makes these sort of mechanics somewhat obsolete. Since Godhusk is written to be an old-school Metroidvania, I see it more so incorporating save stations, or set lives, which Metroidvanias use all the time, or simple permadeath with the save stations. Secondly, I describe Godhusk to be horrifying. That is because, well, it is with the presentation and atmosphere. But my prior point of having saves be accessible will remove a certain aspect of that. A large reason why some games are described to be terrifying is for their difficulty, but also because of what the player has to lose. Godhusk would be a true survival horror if it was permadeath, or close to that, and a great one at that. Thirdly, Godhusk doesn't seem to be an overly long game. Permadeath only works best if a defined route is set, because if a player loses dozens and dozens of hours of progress, then it is extremely demotivating, and whilst some people like difficulty, there is a difference between that and hard for the sake of being hard. Godhusk has a somewhat scarce amount of areas that are massively varied and layered, meaning that the game has many options for how to end it or how to traverse it, without it consuming an unneeded amount of time thanks to the player having to go through many zones to reach the one they need. I mean, for example, one of the game's endings is extremely early on. As for Godhusk's soundtrack, well, it's obvious that it doesn't have one. But I can imagine it being very industrial, and I don't mean any sort of industrial, but the sort of industrial that screams metal. If you haven't listened to the late Chu Ishikawa, then I would recommend you do so. His work as a composer and in the band Der Eisenrost is fantastic, specifically on the Armored Weapon album. On top of that, I would imagine elements of Gregorian chants to be interlaced within the soundtrack, due to the game's obvious biblically inspired lore and imagery. For the more ambient tracks, I would have it be simple drones or none at all to let the atmosphere itself speak. Metroidvanias are typically less immersive than other games thanks to their side-scrolling nature. So sound design and presentation will go a long way, and I can imagine Godhusk to be extremely immersive. Music itself had a large impact on Godhusk's creation, as evident by Plasterboo's Instagram stories. An example of that is the music by Chinese hackers. Okay, enough what-ifs. The lore. The following is my interpretation alone. Games, or well, settings such as Godhusk, are made to be theorized over and speculated. If you disagree with some things I've said, that's all good, but just know that a lot of the things aren't defined or explained at all. But I will try to fill in gaps if needed. As mentioned, there are 7 endings in Godhusk, and almost all of them are pretty vague at face value. Surprisingly, in my opinion, the 2 endings that are the least vague are actually the final 2 you can get, being Epoch and Wheelwright. More on those in a moment. Godhusk is a story of birth, or, well, rebirth. This has meaning. At the very start of the book is a monologue by an unnamed human character that I read out at the very start of this video. It is somewhat stated that vessels are built upon the experiences of the old world. As it is directly written, quote, "Any lived moment or thought could be instantly captured by a mind cell and turned into a physical unit." We shall call the human at the start protagonist. Protagonist states that his will be carried to a vessel, meaning the hand acts within the boundaries of the protagonist's will. What this will isn't exactly clear, as the hand can do many things, but the protagonist describes it to be invisible. This alone gives me reason to believe the protagonist was a sort of explorer. The protagonist also has a burden. This burden is his very existence, as he describes his body to be broken and weak. And existing on this planet is, well, alone, depressing and tragic. He does also state, after all, that he is scared. As we know now, it's a very dangerous place, and being the only human left here makes it even worse. In a poetic sense, the hand is one of the newest vessels in Godhusk, as it was born at the very start of the story, and already has its mem unit attached to it. It hasn't degraded over time like most vessels have, which in a sense makes it the most human vessel. Its memories, or should I say the protagonist's memories, are fresh, after all. As well as carrying his will, the hand also carries his abilities. And the fact that the protagonist lived for this long says a lot about what he was capable of. Even if he died in the end, he at least died of something natural, such as age or some sort of decay, rather than being eradicated by a hostile fungal cytine organism or a rogue vessel gone mad. Now that I've mentioned it, let's talk about the setting itself. Some describe it to be a megastructure, some a planet. But I believe it's both, a planet of metal, of synthetic material, and what remains of life gone mad. Life, of course, being in large quotation marks. The closest thing to life now are the cytine organisms, which are comprised of fungi. We know this planet is heated by a sun that was created for taking care of the planet, but has since been damaged and caused excess heat on the outer crust. I would say that the reason why it's only staying in the outer crust is that the orbit is broken. All we know about the sun that came before is that, well, it's gone, according to the broadcaster. No more explanation, just it's gone. Perhaps the world of Godhusk simply became a rogue planet somehow and the sun mysteriously vanished. Quite a horrifying thought, but the idea makes sense. A funny thought though is that these machines don't necessarily need heat to live, humans do. But these machines less so. The fact Imera 12 only shines on the outer crust must mean that much of the planet is actually freezing cold. Unless there are other heating systems, which for a complex as big and complex as this one makes sense. Upon his death, the protagonist actually has something in his hand. What we know now as a mem unit. A unit that carries memories, experiences, and in this case, a will of sorts. It has a symbol on it, and we aren't quite sure what it represents. Now, if we go all the way back to the cover of the book, we see this exact mem unit attached to what we know as the hand. We know now that this is the hand because its head is the same as many of the depictions given in the book, and, well, if you're going to have anything on the front cover of the book, it's the player character. So why is the hand called the hand? It is quite an odd name, but it is actually a sort of metatext. It is quite simple. The hand is the hand of the player, and by extension the protagonist now that it carries his will. Mem units are very important, as they carry the knowledge of the old world, and allow the denizens of this new age to better understand themselves and what came before. Of course, they can be used to trade as well, as information is power. I mean, in the old world there were entire wars dedicated to information. So we know that the world collapsed because the second angel abandoned Obek, but there is more to it than that. Questions such as why did the second angel leave and why do some characters oppose Obek come to mind. Well, like many things, this isn't clear. All we can do is interpret the purposely vague lore and story laid out in front of us. A good way of tackling the lore is to discuss the endings. Near the very end of the book are 2 pages dedicated to them, showing the names of the endings as well as some art related to them. There are, though, no explanations. So let's get into what they mean and what they entail. Wheelwright. Wheelwright is one of the 2 endings reached upon defeating the apostate. In this ending, the hand takes the second angel back to Obek to restore its divine power and therefore the world. A very simple ending. As the book puts it, after this point the cycle is finally restored, meaning that the world will return to normal. Vessels will return to their duties and the world will become stable once again. You may think to yourself that this is a morally good ending, but arguments could be made that vessels getting their own free will removed isn't good and is actually evil, even if this free will caused the meltdown of the world. We know that Obek has opposition, and some characters even go as far to wish it death. Perhaps this is because they deem Obek to be a figure that enslaves them, as without it they simply do whatever they were made to do. Whether the second angel would escape again or not, well, it's not known. But due to its assisted escape, it might just do that. Epoch. Epoch is the ending following the apostate's death, being if the hand doesn't spare him and get the wheelwright ending. As mentioned, at the very end of the book are some images for each ending, and the one for Epoch is a scorched and dead vessel, perhaps suggesting the fate of the world should this ending be achieved. The game, though, describes Epoch as not the end of a cycle or even the restoration of such. It is, in fact, the act of ushering a completely new cycle. Whether this is the inevitable death of everything in the world or something more isn't known. This ending is extremely open and could either be very bleak or hopeful depending on who you ask. As for why the second angel left in the first place, well, according to the text, the snakes actually helped or perhaps forced it to leave. The second angel's true title is the apostate, which is someone that renounces a religion, meaning that it possibly wanted this to happen, but was still injured when it was taken from its pod. Despite that, it can be guessed why through imagination alone based off what we have here. Perhaps they wanted something more than being a simple battery for Obek, but didn't care at all for the world at large. This could be judged as something ultimately evil or bad, but if you think about it from his perspective, it's quite understandable. Being used merely as a battery when you were perhaps created for something more is not just insulting but incredibly depressing. Why the snakes free the second angel in the first place isn't fully clear, but they mention that they wish to restore the old order. This could mean many things. We know that the snakes are vessels, but perhaps their mem units are one of an older order that seek to push back against Obek. This old order they speak of may simply be that of, well, humanity. A restoration of what once was. Another thing to keep in mind is that the snake egg, being the area where the innocent is held, is described to be the prison of the innocent. The innocent, of course, being the second angel of course, being the apostate. Humanity itself is long gone. and all the angels have left is this world of metal and organisms that, to Cassiel, only pretend to be that which came before. Vessels by definition aren't living things. They do not have brains, they do not have organs, they do not have real thoughts. They are but puppets made by humans to do specific tasks, with the mem units being the most human thing about them. Now, the 5 other endings are a little bit more complex, so let's get into them. Husk. So remember the angel-like head atop the altar in the final area? That is actually very relevant to this ending, as well as a few other pieces found throughout the world, seemingly created by these figures we know as snakes. Last time I mentioned the Husk ending, I skimmed past the details of these pieces, because mentioning them without context would have been very confusing. With all these angel pieces equipped, the hand may enter a pod beneath Obek and acquire the Husk ending. Around Obek are 7 pods, being the 7 angels that power the Supreme Engineer, that only went mad after the second angel left. Essentially, the hand may replace the second angel and bring Obek back to life, whilst exchanging its own existence. Well, if it does bring Obek back to its former state or not isn't known. The name of the ending, Husk, seems almost hopeless and anticlimactic for such a feat. So perhaps this isn't actually what happens at all and Obek remains in this state. The angel parts the snakes made to maybe replace the second angel might not have been enough. The snakes themselves have a pretty vague goal: to protect or use the apostate, also known as the innocent, providing him a body to tend to his wounds whilst also building a vessel-like angel as a sort of backup. Maybe they wanted to somehow extract apostate's divine energy and put it into their own angel, so they have more power over Obek. But this is less likely, considering they go out of their way to help the apostate heal from his wounds. And the apostate probably has the power, even in his injured state, to escape from them. Martyr. The martyr ending is almost the same as Husk, except this time the hand drinks the red communion beforehand. Martyr means someone who has died or been killed due to their beliefs, typically religious. This makes me think that the red communion's power over the hand, as well as the angel parts it has equipped, makes Obek come back to life. A guarantee of a continued cycle or age. The name of this ending alone also confirms that the hand dies during this feat, taking its life for Obek's sake. This means that the belief, in this case, is the belief of Obek, of its power, influence, and the good of this age that only exists thanks to it. This is perhaps the most pro-Obek ending. Purity. The primordial vessel is, like many things, a vague item. Its lore, though, can be assumed by its name alone. Primordial means something that existed from the beginning of time, and vessel, of course, being the machinery that exists within Godhusk, that have their purposes defined thanks to mem units, but these purposes have largely gone thanks to the absence of Obek. The primordial vessel is, therefore, the first vessel by name. Of course, we know that purity happens when Cassiel is fed to Ark, being the combination of around a dozen vessels found in Bema. Doing so will cause Cassiel Reborn to be, well, born. So what is Cassiel? Well, the depiction of them and the power they threaten to wield suggests that they are an angel. Their reborn form has 2 fleshy wings and even a glowing background, the latter being something many depictions of divinity have in biblical art. They state that humanity has an illness. Through their speech, it is obvious that the illness they speak of are vessels and the other organisms that remain in the world. They describe flesh as holy, and that vessels defile the gift of life. Now that humanity is gone, their illness, being the vessels, is the only thing left. They tell the hand that their impurity was inherited, perhaps talking of either their very nature as a vessel or maybe, for some reason, the protagonist that the mem unit inside the hand belongs to. Perhaps, instead of being an explorer, the protagonist's will was to carry this age on. Who really knows? Cassiel seems to blame the vessels entirely on the fall of the world, or perhaps the dependence on them for such. All of this is enough for them to destroy the entire world as an act of mercy. Cassiel alone seems to care a large amount for humanity, or at least flesh. We can guess quite easily the angels created humanity, but only humanity created the vessels. Perhaps this so-called life is considered an illness thanks to Cassiel, as it is but a pathetic imitation of such that only exists on the memories of humans. Rapture. Rapture is an ending that also involves Cassiel. To achieve this ending, the hand must place the dormant last-born plant Cassiel inside the empty pod near Obek, of course being the pod where the second angel once laid. The word rapture in millenarian teaching means the transportation of believers to heaven at the second coming of Christ. Translating this into Godhusk perhaps means that those who believe in Cassiel, who now has ultimate control over the world, will be ascended in some sort of way, whether that be a newfound hierarchy or otherwise. What we can gather from the Purity ending is Cassiel's personality and opinion on humanity as well as vessels. However, in this ending, Cassiel has the power to change vessels completely, unlike in that other ending. Perhaps this rapture led by Cassiel involves the remaining angels around Obek returning to their state of high divinity. The art that represents the ending, after all, has 6 angels reaching out toward Cassiel. Maybe this rapture is a sort of return to what the world once was, rather than a selective group of people. Again, this makes sense considering how Cassiel thinks. As for why Cassiel is a plant that needs to be regrown, it's not known. Perhaps the location the plant was found in, being Red House, was a safety protocol against the heat of Emera 12 in the outer crust, and the divinity that the plant created was created by humanity. The plant, after all, is described to be the only non-artificial lifeform left. This implies many things, but the most important fact is that the non-artificial lifeform can, somehow, give way to divinity through enough effort. As for what will happen to the hand during this, it isn't known, but I imagine that Cassiel would either destroy the hand or, less likely, grant it a sort of ascension as a reward for granting them such power. Ecdysis. Ecdysis is the final ending that I will discuss, and it involves the Red Communion. Simply drinking the Red Communion in front of the figure found in the Cardinal Chamber, whilst equipped with the pieces of the makeshift angel, triggers this ending, with the book detailing it as a way for the hand to no longer be a vessel. By equipping all 5 pieces of the angel vessel, the hand essentially becomes an angel. So, fun fact, I have already told you where the pieces of the angel pieces are. I just didn't tell you that they were angel pieces. Let's go over them again. The head is on the altar. The weapon is the drill and is the very same one used to get into Red House. It is found on the way to Rusttown. One arm is the glowing arm that is found in Beamer. The other arm is in the Pillar of Mercy proper. The last 2 are found in the gestation chamber when the unborn is killed. As I said, I mentioned all of these already when we went through the book, but just like in the game, you wouldn't know their full use without the context we now have. To even enter the Cardinal Chamber, the hand must drain its white bile. A clear separation between red and white. White is often associated with anything divine or anything wholly good, whilst red is the complete opposite. By expelling the white bile, the hand shows its submission to the figure inside the Cardinal Chamber, which itself is surrounded by a pool of red bile. With the angel pieces equipped and the Red Communion drank, the hand dedicates itself as a pretend divine being to becoming something akin to an angel through this ancient and unknown ritual. We know this too because the art for the ending depicts the hand as an angel, wings and halo to match. The word ecdysis means to shed your old skin, typically a reptile, or an outer cuticle. In this case, the hand is shedding the state of vesselhood and ascending to divinity. Okay, moving on from the endings. Another interesting thing I want to point out is something involving the broadcaster. The broadcaster speaks in Latin, meaning that the world of Godhusk was either near Earth, or is actually Earth itself. Humans did exist here after all, so it makes sense. And forgive me for talking about the real world for a moment, because I promise it's relevant. It makes sense with the way the world is going with automation and putting human experiences inside machinery. Yeah, the video is going to get a little weird in a moment, but forgive me and hear me out. In Godhusk, we don't know what exactly made humans die off. All we know is that the world is now filled with their creations, or things that spawned unintentionally from such. The only human we see in the entire game, besides the contents of the mem units, is the protagonist, or, as the blurb of the book calls him, the Dead Man. The Hand began as a vessel like many others, except the will of what came before, of what seems to be the explorer that I call the protagonist, has allowed it to do many things. From killing an angel and dooming the world, to sparing the sane divine being and saving the world, to becoming an angel itself, to allowing the destruction of the entire worlds at the wrath of an angel, to simply drifting into a forever sleep. This was the Hand's journey through a world long past its prime, and despite being like many others, it is by dedication alone that a difference could be made, and not just any dedication, but one of a human, whether that difference is destruction, rebirth, or neglect. As the back of this book states, "Spare the innocent, drink poison, punish the wretched, free your soul, or set the world ablaze." This was Godhusk. So that was Godhusk, a game that doesn't exist. As I said before, a lot of the book is up to interpretation, and whether Plasterby wrote it with definite facts in mind isn't known, and to be honest, that's good, and in my mind is the strength of books such as this one. I know that some people have different interpretations than I through my own research of the book, and that is the magic of this sort of storytelling. I also saw someone describe this technique of storytelling as lazy, which is quite disingenuous and narrow-minded. Defining everything is serving nothing but the destruction of creativity and interpretation. The moment you write everything with facts is the moment your audience becomes uninterested, because what is the point in theorizing if everything is already decided? Theorizing is important because it creates excitement and is simply fun. I would prefer Godhusk to be the way it is, instead of being absolutely defined, because it is very fun piecing everything together. My favourite thing though about Godhusk is the art. Plasterby did a fantastic job with the illustrations, and I genuinely describe it to be a masterpiece. Even though there are games like Godhusk in some capacity, none come even close to the beauty these pages have. As I said at the start of the video, a game with a similar art style is Baroque for the Sega Saturn. So a small but very relevant tangent. I sometimes get asked why I put a no AI disclaimer at the start of my videos, and it is very simple. No matter how much you train AI, it will always lack the human condition and the ability to truly analyze. After all, the algorithms and the content they are trained off is human, or at least sourced by humans. But simply replicating the words and knowledge alone is anything but human. Why is this relevant, you may ask? Well, Godhusk, to me, could be many things, but at the risk of injecting my own opinions too much, could be a tale of human neglect and trusting too much in machinery. The mem units of humans are the only reasons that the vessels exist, and Obek, despite being perhaps praised as a divine being somewhat, is by definition just a machine, an artificial brain or server. It can also only be powered by divine beings. In this case, angels. It only exists because of things of flesh and blood. And yes, angels aren't human, but they do feel emotion. And they, more than anyone, know what humans are and what they are capable of. They did create them after all. We know the angels of Godhusk are of flesh and blood because the innocent is injured and must recover after being pulled from its pod, and 2 seems to have its own motivations. Godhusk could get a sequel in the future, but I think it works extremely well as a standalone story. It gives enough for the imagination and is a very satisfying book to both own and read through. There are a few themes prevalent in Godhusk. Firstly, I do think a lot of the storytelling is based on the human condition, both good and bad. telling the story of how, at the end, a vessel with the will of a human saves the world that has gone to hell, thanks to the neglect of the humans that once led the world. The neglect, that is, of their very own future. Going back to my point of AI, as again, I feel like Godhusk also has a theme of anti-AI and pro-humanism. To me, at least. Plastibu probably didn't think of this at all, and simply put their words on the pages without much thought of theming and storytelling. Hell, I could be overthinking 99% of the lore, but that is the fun of analysing. Anyway, today, AI may seem good for a lot of things, but it also does things that it shouldn't, namely art. Art is based on the human experience, what they go through, etc. We make art to express ourselves, and AI, even when its hand is being held by a human, cannot express itself like a human can. The raw emotion put into art simply isn't present. There is no light behind the eyes of those mid-journey creations, and many people who go out of their way to promote it are extremely ignorant. Again, relevant because the game heavily focuses on the downfall of humanity and what came after, and that this world of machinery cannot carry on without the need of something greater, be it an angel, human, or anything of flesh and blood, of thought and emotion. Okay, moving past the AI yapping. A lot of the influence is on the biblical depictions. Not just in the art, but also in the lore and how the story works. Besides the literal angels, there is a lot of terminology, especially in the endings, that is obviously a nod to religion. Not just from the Bible either, but from mythology too. Diopetes, being the spear that kills anything in one touch, can actually be compared to Guy Bolger. Sorry if I butchered that, Irish friends. Meaning spear of mortal pain or death. The notched spear, or the belly spear. This spear is made from the bone of a sea monster and is said to be extremely powerful. After entering a man's body with a single wound, it would open into many barbs. Only by cutting the flesh could it be taken from that man's body, as the stories say. If we look at Diopetes itself, it is also extremely barbed, and any normal man stabbed by it will, no doubt, succumb to it. Lastly, the thing I want to talk about is the colours of Godhusk. Specifically how that even with the lack of colour compared to most works like it, it manages to still be, well, somehow colourful. The elegant use of browns, reds and yellows with the shadows of the creatures that cast them gives an immense sense of depth and scale. The lighting too is well done, and the subtle glow sometimes stands out. So a fun fact. I believe Plastibu gets much of the CRT effects of their art through, well, actually running their illustrations through CRT monitors. You see this more in some pages than others, but it works extremely well and speaks to the dedication that it goes into these books. To honour this CRT effect, I also made this video in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and for a lot of the video too, I purposely degraded the quality of the image. Not too much though, the art again is something to admire. As I said before, Plastibu has created another book akin to Godhusk called Vermis. It isn't sci-fi and is rather dark fantasy, and whilst it has been covered on the internet more than Godhusk due to it being released before it, I will cover it if people want to. Different takes on these pieces of fiction are fun after all. We know that many things I have said in this video may not apply to others' interpretations, or people may agree with me. I would, though, tell people to check out the book for themselves because whilst I've covered all the information in it, I've not really shown all the art because I think it means more to see it yourself. Let's quickly go over the book itself actually, not the contents but the way it feels. Before we wrap up, I just want to say that this video was not sponsored, this isn't a review, and this is just a video essay where I talk about something that I really love. It is very well made, quite large, and is 128 pages long. It has glossy paper, a stitched binding, and overall is just very fun to hold and read through. Okay, that's everything. Again, the link to purchase Godhusk is in the description below, as is Plasterbu's social media. Once again, this video was not sponsored at all. If you are interested in my channel, feel free to like and subscribe, follow my Twitter and join the Discord server as well. There are also Patreon and YouTube membership options if you want to go even further with your support, for a few rewards in return. Thanks for watching and stay safe.
Life isn't just about passing on your genes. We can leave behind much more than just DNA. Through speech, music, literature, and movies, what we've seen, heard, felt, anger, joy, and sorrow. These are the things I will pass on. That's what I live for. We need to pass the torch and let our children read our messy and sad history by its light. We have all the magic of the digital age to do that with. The human race will probably come to an end sometime, and new species may rule over this planet. Earth may not be forever, but we still have the responsibility to leave what traces of life we can. Building the future and keeping the past alive are one and the same thing.
Thank you to the patrons in the shoutout tiers: Worm, Times, Alex T, Carl Essinger, Hero, Vodes, Resgorilla, Simeon, Moon Goddesses, Faber, Krieg 1212, Wostan, Vitor Pinheiro, Operation Error, Laloa, Handsome Sun, Halusi, Courage, Jaden, Yellow Forest, Corrupto, End Lifer, Honest Heart, Whitemane, Ban, 049, Derek, C1, The Salesman, Envy of Light, Band of Infinity, Calypsa, Spider, Ashley, Vero, Trinity, Charcoal Eater, Jack, Reaper, Cole Smith, Random Name Here, and Jordan.